Watch the ride.
Hi everybody. So, this is a very classic subject. Aliens, UFOs and alike. What do I think is the reality? As I say, back in the day everyone did a video on this subject. But my approach is a little different maybe because I actually do know a little bit about science and stuff and the feasibilities of things and such. So, do I believe there is life out there in the universe other than us? Yeah, I think it's kind of inevitable. It is interesting that there's only been one example of biogenesis on Earth, biogenesis being this sort of spark of life happening. Although there may have been more. I know there was someone who was doing some studies into some brine lakes or something, and they found a life form in there, and they're like, this looks like this might not have come from the original spark. This is it's based on a different thing. You know, we're carbon based, you can have things based on other stuff. But I don't know what the score is with that yet. And certainly if it had been confirmed by now, I reckon I probably would have heard. So that is interesting, because, you know, if you think about it, Earth is the petri dish of life, and yet it's only happened here once, as far as we know. You know, why isn't it constantly happening? Like, why isn't every pool of stagnant water suddenly getting a new life form spark out of it? Now, the intelligence level, do I think they're intelligent? Don't know. I don't know what the probabilities are, but, you know, even though there is, you know, people say, oh, there's so many planets, so many stars, so many of this that could inhabit life, then there must be the opportunity and there must be more intelligent, because, you know, humans love to think that we are super advanced, and it's very possible that we aren't super advanced. We're actually quite behind. You know, like the way that we see ants might be how a super intelligent life form would see us. Like, they wouldn't even class what we're doing as, like, look, they're cute, look, they like ride machines and things, that's nice. Do you remember we used to do that thousands of years ago, or weren't even stupid enough to do that? We just come up with a completely different technology. But there's so many ways of looking at it. Of course, you know, where people say, well, look at all the radio transmissions that have come off of Earth. You know, if there was other civilizations out there, we'd definitely be able to hear them, we'd find them, we'd pick up on one of those signals. And, you know, equally, people are saying, oh, well, they'll hear our signals soon. Well, the speed of the radio waves is actually not that fast in comparison to how far it would need to go. So it would still take a long-ass time. And also, when they get that first signal, that is our first signal. They won't get the signal today until the amount of time that elapsed between those two times, which could be, what, like over 100 years, maybe? So for the same reasons, maybe that's why we haven't heard one of these other civilizations, because they're just so far away. We know how old the universe is, we know how big it is. It's quite possible that there is a very advanced civilization beaming super strong radio beams in all frequencies all over space to try and get noticed, but it's still going to be thousands of years before those signals even get to us. But then there's other things like, what are the probabilities of two planets forming life, them both getting the same sort of technologies around the same time, existing at the same time to be able to coexist, as it were, even though they're separated from a large distance? It becomes far more unlikely for those two to contact each other when you think about it in that perspective, because there could have been advanced civilizations, you know, 2 million years ago that died out on a nearby planet, but we just don't know. Well, I suppose we've looked at most of the nearby planets, but you know what I mean. It's not, has there ever been intelligent life forms? It's, are there intelligent life forms around still now? And then again, do they even use radio equipment or technology even close to what we do? Maybe they know, maybe they've learned something about the fundamentals of the space fabric and have learned some way of, I don't know, well, what is it? I can't remember what they are now, but it's like where you have two particles and how you affect one affects another no matter what the distance is. So it's like instant communications in theory. So what if they have a chip with these on, and then they have, you know, they have a receiver station and they know what the phone's doing. It's got a direct, it's like it's not sending signals, it is part of the same thing in two different locations. I am talking about real stuff right now. It's weird as hell, but they have found that if you affect one thing here, it kind of has a pair, and it gets affected elsewhere even though they're not directly connected. It's like they know. I think we only very, 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 very basically understand what's going on in our universe. We might feel like we've got it all sussed, but we only have our best guesses so far, and there may be underlying things in that just never have considered. We're not on that plane of thinking. You know, it's like in Interstellar when they try to show a representation of, was it the fifth dimension or wherever it was? I can't remember. You know, he's in the bookcase. So I'm not really giving any answers here, am I? Well, that's why, because I don't really have any. I don't know. None of us know. But I do know the science, and I do understand how, in ways, it's incredibly likely, and in other ways, it seems incredibly unlikely that we might actually ever interact with them. Now, that's another thing. People say, well, if they come here, will they be friendly? Well, shall we go on our own nature? In the history of the past, when people travelled to distant places they'd never been before, people there tended to die. Maybe that wasn't intentional. You know, maybe it was just a misunderstanding at first, and that just what sparked it off. And humans are naturally distrusting. You know, I don't know any one of the people in these cars. Why should I trust them or not? I don't know. So why would I necessarily trust another life form or people from a far off place? I mean, look at the reaction between people just because of the colour of your skin. It's so superficial, and yet for some reason it made such a difference. And you know, people will say to that, well, why would they travel all this way to get here to us to then just kill us? Well, don't know. Why did we end up going places all that way and then just go and kill people? They didn't know why we were going there. They just like, these people have just come here, they want all of our stuff and they're killing us. But the people going to colonise these countries, they were doing something great. They were, you know, they were exploring, they were finding new lands for their country, and in those days there was such a lack of respect for, as I say, people of just having a different skin colour, that if it came to another life form again, I don't know. It would be nice to believe that they were like creatures of science and truth and understanding and acceptance, and they're travelling around the star systems, and they're trying to help people out where they can. Maybe they come to Earth and like, hey, Earth, humans, you have a problem, you're killing your planet, we can help you solve that one, here's some technology. See you later, we'll send you a postcard. It'd be nice to think that was a possibility. Question is, would we do it? If we manage to survive long enough to get our technology to the point that we have the option of becoming an interplanetary species and actually travel the universe, even though that's kind of not really possible. If you'd like to watch my video, I'll link it because I don't know what the title is anymore. It was called something like Sending Humans into Space is Dumb, but I think I changed it to Sending Humans into Deep Space is Dumb because people got really, really antsy with me, and not liking me pointing out the fact that the next nearest star would take about 55,000 years to get to. So if we do get the technology, would we then go around the world, the universe, trying to save and help people, like in Star Trek? But what did they end up doing in Star Trek? Killing a lot of goddamn people and getting into wars, because that's the reality of it. Here's an interesting one though, talking about the sort of as an update to the travelling into deep space is dumb. Okay, well maybe it's not dumb. Maybe we'll work out some way of travelling fast enough that we can really make some difference. If someone's 100 light years away, even if we could travel at the speed of light, we're still going to take 100 years to get there. So I'd still think it's dumb. But there's also the problem of when do you leave? Because, okay, the first type of technology you have that would allow you to do this will probably be very slow. So say, for instance, the first version, the first ship that could actually get out there, like the first plane, who travelled at like 30, 40 miles an hour, if in 20 or 30 years time after that we come up with a technology which is 2.5 times as fast, and we sent them to the same goal, the one that was sent 20 years later than the first one will overtake the first one. So it's possible that the best, quickest way to get there is to leave incredibly late. Wait for the much more advanced technology before you try and do this travel. Because as I say, it's not like we're doing a quick hop, skip and a jump. Like with learning to fly, when humans invented planes, they didn't go, hey, the first flight we do, we want to go round the world. What they wanted to do was just bloody well get off the ground. So having the ability to travel through a long distance in space and survive and have food somehow and all of these things is such an undertaking. And I hope that explains a little bit more as to why I think sending humans into deep space is dumb, because that puts so much parameters into having to get that ship there and how fast it can travel, that the whole idea of sending robots or autonomous machines to do the job makes so much more sense. But then again, in the long distant future, we have to get out of this solar system because it's going to get enveloped by our own sun. If something doesn't smash into Earth beforehand, which, well, it will. It's not an if, it will happen. It's just when. You know, it doesn't take for some 10 mile by 10 mile wide rock to hit us to cause a pretty catastrophic event. It can be, if it was half a mile by half a mile and it managed to hit with a good speed and actually impact, or even worse, airburst over a city much lower than, like, you know, the one in Russia. If that had got closer to the ground when it exploded, oh my god, the place would have been destroyed. And as for UFOs, well, there's never been any good solid evidence of it. There has been lots of weird things that have happened. That just gets so deep into conspiracy theories and stuff, and human possibilities of lying, and, you know, it's just, there isn't any evidence to prove it for or against conclusively. Some people may say there's some very strange things that have been seen, but none of it is a very conclusive thing. When evidence comes forward that makes it unquestionable, well, then it's unquestionable. Until that point, it's always going to be in question. I hope that covered that one enough to be interesting, but for you to understand, basically my thoughts on it are so mixed because I understand the arguments in both directions with everything. Well, I don't understand everything, but, you know, I know both sides. Anyway, if you like the video, hit that like button, maybe support me through Patreon, and I'll catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.